A strange thing has always happened throughout history. Every generation looks at the sky and wonders if it means something. For most people, the moon is simply a light in the night, a quiet companion that rises, shines, and fades again. But in the pages of Scripture, the moon is sometimes more than a light. It becomes a sign, a signal, a moment when heaven seems to speak in a language older than history itself. One ancient prophecy described a night when the sky would change in a way that no one could ignore. Not slowly, not quietly, but suddenly. A moment when the moon would appear red, like blood. And according to the prophet who wrote those words, that moment would come just before a time of great awakening on the earth. These words were written more than 2,000 years ago. Long before modern science, long before telescopes, long before anyone could explain why the moon sometimes changes color during certain alignments in space. Yet the prophecy remained, waiting, preserved in the ancient text known today as the Book of Joel. In that passage, the prophet described a dramatic scene in the heavens, the sun growing dark, the moon appearing like blood, and the world entering a moment of decision. But the prophecy did not end there. In fact, the most important part of the message comes after the sign in the sky. Because according to Joel, the change in the heavens was never meant to create panic. It was meant to create awareness, a signal that something deeper was happening among the nations of the earth. Throughout history, moments like this have caused people to stop and ask difficult questions. Questions about purpose, about time, about where history is actually going. The writers of Scripture believed that the heavens were not random. They believed the sky itself could act like a clock, not predicting every event in detail, but marking certain seasons in the story of humanity. Centuries after Joel wrote his prophecy, another moment came when those same words were quoted again, this time not by a prophet of ancient Israel, but by one of the early followers of Jesus Christ. During a gathering in Jerusalem, a man named Peter spoke to a crowd that had just witnessed something extraordinary. And as he explained what was happening, he repeated Joel's ancient words almost exactly. The sun will turn to darkness, the moon will become like blood, and everyone who calls upon the name of the Lord will be saved. Those words were later recorded in the book known as Acts of the Apostles. But what made this moment interesting is that Peter did not present the prophecy as something meant only for the distant future. Instead, he suggested that humanity had entered a new chapter of history, a period when people everywhere would begin to seek answers about the deeper meaning of life. And for many readers of the Bible, that idea still raises an important question. When the sky changes, what exactly is it meant to tell us? Because the prophets rarely described signs in the heavens as isolated events, they usually connected them to something happening on the earth at the same time. Moments when nations shift, when societies change direction, when people begin asking questions they once ignored. And if you continue reading the prophecy in Joel, you start to notice something surprising. The focus of the message is not actually the moon. It is the human heart. Joel describes a world where people have drifted away from what is right, a world filled with noise, conflict, and distraction. Yet even in that environment, the prophet says a window of grace still exists, an opportunity for people to return, to rethink the path they are on, to seek truth again. This is why the prophecy never ends with fear. It ends with invitation. According to Joel, the greatest part of the message was never the sign in the sky. It was the response of the people who saw it. Because the prophet believed that every sign in the heavens carried the same quiet message. Look up, pause, consider the direction of your life, and remember that history is moving towards something greater than we often realize. Centuries later, another book of the Bible would also describe unusual signs appearing in the heavens during the final chapters of human history. This time, the imagery becomes even more dramatic. Stars falling, the sky seeming to roll back, and the world entering a moment of global realization. These visions appear in the final book of the New Testament, the mysterious text known as the Book of Revelation. For generations, readers have debated exactly how these descriptions should be understood. Some believe they refer to literal cosmic events. Others believe they are symbolic language describing massive changes in human history. But almost everyone agrees on one point. The writers of Scripture believe the heavens and the earth are connected in ways we do not fully understand. And occasionally, something happens in the sky that reminds people to look beyond their everyday routines, to remember that the story of humanity is still unfolding. And according to the prophets, some of the most important chapters may still lie ahead.